Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode we shall be casting our ever critical eye over another 10th edition datasheet, and once more we shall be taking to the skies of Forge World and looking at an Imperial Guard aircraft. Now, up until this point, most of the flyers that we have reviewed have been pretty good. Either they're genuinely efficient units, which are let a little bit down by the weird 10th edition aircraft rules, or they're ones that are solid, their datasheet's okay, but maybe their points cost is a bit high. This time, we have got nothing like that. This time, we are going to be afflicting upon our eyeballs. Possibly, I'm going to say definitely the worst flyer in the Guard and possibly the worst flyer in the entire game of Warhammer 40k. I am talking about, sadly, the Marauder Bomber. And so with a heavy heart, let's not mess around any further. Let's chocks away and fly right into this storm of inadequacy, which is today's video. As is tradition, let us begin with a brief overview of what the hell this unit actually is. According to the fluff, the Marauder Bomber is capable of both atmospheric and void operations, and it is the workhorse within the Imperial Navy with an excellent weapon payload. Unfortunately, this is entirely propaganda, and the reality is the Marauder Bomber is about as useful as a cowpat in an air conditioning unit. However, this may not be immediately obvious when you look at the Marauder stat line, because it has quite the impressive array of numbers. Firstly, it's got that customary movement of 20 plus inches, as is the case of most aircraft. If you're new to flyers in 40k, what that means is the aircraft has to move 20 inches, a minimum of 20, but it has no maximum, so you can fly it around the board as pretty much as you want, as long as you obey the rest of the rules like the pivoting and straight lines and all that kind of good stuff. So it's got a lot of movement. Also toughness 10, making it one of the more durable flyers, making it so that you have to shoot it with proper anti-tank. Autocannons will win this on 5s, which isn't reliable enough. You need a proper las cannon to do some damage to it. And a 2+ save and 20 wounds! That's more wounds than most main battle tanks, making the Marauder Bomber, at least on paper, more durable than things like Lehman Russes and even Rogel Dawns. Of course, as being a guard unit, it has leadership of 7+, and then it's got an OC of 0 because it can't hold objectives because it's flying high in the sky. So with a stat line like that, you would think, oh, this is a pretty decent thing. But then we get to the weapons. The Marauder Bomber comes equipped with heavy bombs, 2 heavy bolters, and 2 las cannons. Now, those heavy bolters and las cannons are what you expect. They're standard issue. Heavy bolters, 36-inch range, 3 shots, blister skill 4+, strength 5, 8 -1, 2 damage, sustained hits 1. Las cannon, 48-inch range, 1 shot, blister skill 4+, strength 12, 8 -3, d6 +1 damage. On the surface, this might seem like a decent amount of extra weapons. Couple of heavy bolters to dagger down the infantry, couple of lance cannons to poke holes in vehicles. But then you realise there are other flyers which can do this for much cheaper and much better. And we'll come back to that points cost in just a moment, believe you me. If you're looking at the Marauder Bomber and you're thinking, well, I want it for its heavy bolters and lance cannons, then why the hell wouldn't you just take an Avenger Strike Fighter? That comes with 2 lance cannons. That comes with an Avenger Bolt Cannon, which is better than the heavy bolter in nearly every conceivable way. But then you get to the real turd swimming in the soup bowl, and that is the heavy bombs. Each time the bearer ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit it moved over during that move and roll 9d6, adding 1 to each result if that unit is a monster or vehicle. For each 5+, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Now, I will admit that the idea of rolling 9d6 is a lot of dice, and for each one of those dice to potentially generate a mortal wound on 4 pluses, no less, against monster or vehicles. And we are in a monster or vehicle meta, so very relevant, is tempting. But when you start looking at the bigger picture and breaking down the actual statistics, you realize that it's utterly shite. Because, firstly, even if you're going against your intended target, on average, that's going to be 4 to 5 wounds. That is just not a lot. You know what else does on average 4 to 5 wounds? A las cannon. Because it's D6 plus 1 damage, and on that translates to 3.5 plus 1 damage. That's 4.5, so that's either 4 or 5 damage, roughly. Please lambast me for my terrible napkin math hammer skills. The point is that your number one thing basically translates to the same as a successful las cannon hit. And then you realize that you have to move over an enemy unit. Now, sure, you have movement 20 plus, and the Marauder Bomber does have quite the wingspan, so you probably won't have too much issue doing that. But by moving over, by going that far forward, by flying into the heart of darkness, straight into the abyss, your Marauder Bomber, even with it's pretty decent, I will admit, defense stat line, is going to last about 5 seconds. Because what's going to happen is you're going to fly over, you're going to bomb one vehicle, you're going to do 4 or 5 wounds to it, and the opponent's going to turn around and go, and it's going to die. That's what's going to happen. Because it's not like you can do this safely at range. You literally have to move over enemy units. And considering how small most 10th edition boards are, we don't really play on the 6x4 anymore. It does make a big difference going down to the 44x60. Most enemy, and considering that a lot of enemy armies are quite elite and they specialize in sticking together for overlapping buffs and stuff like that, you'll find that you'll fly over one unit, and bear in mind you can only select one unit. You can't select every unit you fly over. You can't bomb everything in a straight line. You can fly over the entire enemy army. You still only get to pick one unit you drop your bombs on. And so you're going to fly over pretty much the whole enemy army, and that whole enemy army is going to turn around and kill you. So it really is not a very good ability. Fortunately, you do, and this is sarcastic, you do have the option to replace your heavy bombs with Inferno bombs, which do exactly the same thing, except for therefore targeting anything that isn't a monster or a vehicle. Otherwise, the ability works exactly the same. So good luck on taking your very expensive Marauder Bomber and flying it over a bunch of termagants and doing 4 mortal wounds, which they'll probably regrow with a Tervigon or with a stratagem. Just rubbish. It's just rubbish. It's fundamentally terrible. And unfortunately, there's not really a lot of redeeming factors for the Marauder Bomber. You're taking it for the heavy bombs. The bombs themselves don't do a lot of damage. The bombs themselves force you to, no matter what target or which ones you go for, the bombs themselves require you to put your vehicle into harm's way. And the worst bit of all, absolutely the worst bit, you can't even use the bombs straight away.
Attention guardsmen, this is an announcement by the Departamento Militarum. Element Games is an official sponsor of the mordianglorytv channel. They offer up to 20% off Warhammer 40k and 10% off bolt action and other game systems. Use the link down in the description to save money and support the channel. Anyone not using the link will be referred to the local commissariat. Also, don't forget that if you use referral code TIM3921, then you will receive double store credit, saving even more money on your future purchases. That's all for now. Fallout!
This is because units, like aircraft, are set up into strategic reserve. Can't come in turn 1 with strategic reserve, and the Marauder Bomber has no hover mode in order to allow it to start on board and hover around like a skimmer. This means that it comes in turn 2 at the earliest. But any unit that comes in from strategic reserve has to deploy within 6 inches of the board edge. If they can't, they have to deploy within as near as possible of 6 inches of the board edge and can't really do anything else after that. Can't move after that. So your Marauder Bomber is only going to be able to release its bombs from turn 3 onwards. So you're spending 40% of the game unable to use what should be the #1 selling point of this vehicle. It just is really a great example of how messed up the aircraft rules are. You thought that aircraft rules were bad for other things. When it comes to bombers, they're not just bad, they're terminal. And all of this is compounded by the frankly ludicrous points cost of the Marauder Bomber. Considering that this thing has basically no firepower, and that there are other flyers that can do the same amount of direct damage than it, and considering that its main ability can't be used for many turns of the game, you would think the Marauder Bomber would be a relatively cheap vehicle. You'd think that, yeah, it's pretty bad, but hey, you can stick one on your list and have a bit of fun with it. No, this thing actively drains your points. It's 345 points. It is one of the most expensive units you can choose to put in your list outside of a super heavy. It is more expensive than a Rogal Dawn. Hell, it's more expensive than the Malkador Defender, and that thing is radically overpriced. It's more expensive than a Macarius heavy tank. Admittedly, Macarius probably peaks into the realm of super heavies, but still, it's more expensive than sometimes 2 Lehman Russes. Not necessarily 2 bad ones, 2 okay ones. It's more expensive than an entire platoon of guardsmen dialed up to the 9s. It's just so ridiculously points intensive that there is no point in putting it in your army. Not only is it suffering from bad rules, not only is it suffering from what is essentially a mediocre datasheet at best, but it is utterly unusable because of its prohibitive points costs. Unless you are playing in a open play game, unless you are playing in something that doesn't really use points costs like an Apocalypse match, then there is no competitive reason to include this thing in your army. However, there is one very important reason you might want to include it, and that's rules be damned! Efficiency be damned! Rule of cool. The Marauder Bomber, whilst it may have been dealt a bad hand in terms of its datasheet, was dealt a very good hand in terms of its aesthetic appeal. This thing is a beast. You put it on the tabletop, it's going to dominate. It's going to be a centerpiece. It's going to look great the entire of turn 2 before your enemy blows up, but it's still going to look awesome. And funny enough, if your opponent realizes how terrible it is, they might just let you fly around it for a bit, especially if it's a friendly game, because it's not going to do much to them, and it'll look cool on the battlefield doing its thing. Or maybe it'll get destroyed straight away because it does look big and intimidating, so someone might be like, I don't know what it does, but I know it's going to die. And in that case, it might do 345 points of bullet sponge. But outside of really the fact that this is a beautiful model, an amazing centerpiece, and a very, very cool unit to have on the tabletop, there isn't really much point in having one of these. It's a flashy showpiece, but it's all style and sadly no substance. At least that's what I think. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Are you the proud owner of a Marauder Bomber? Have you ever used it in a game, whether it's 9th edition, 10th edition, or any edition? And do you have any epic stories about this model? Or was it just a cool thing that you built to go on your display shelf and just enjoy the building and painting and hobbying experience? Now, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, then subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure, and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and Patreons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.